So now we're going to go to the information consent agenda, which is item I, and ask any member of the City Council if they have an item that they would like to have pulled from the agenda. I think we, let's see. I got to switch further. Okay. Any, Councilman Madrigal, do you have any items that you'd like pulled?
No.
Okay. Councilwoman Basua.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Item I2,
I2. Okay.
Community Development
Community
Department.
Development, correct? And
Yes.
Councilman Perrello. And, okay. Why don't we start with Mayor Pro Tem, I2.
Thank you. I received, this is about pending approval of property at 5th and Harbor Boulevard, and I received a lot of communication from residents. Perhaps staff member can speak. I want to know why there's concern about what is being proposed and what the impact would be on residents who are already there. Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, thank you, council members. Jeff Lambert, Community Development Director. So this item on your agenda is an information item. It really is intended to tell the council of an impending action by me under my authority as the Community Development Director. And it's really it's a final map for a subdivision that admittedly has been around a long time and probably is before the memory of many people, except I assume those in the audience remember it quite well. So this project was originally approved in 1999. That was the first city approval, and then it received additional approvals from the Coastal Commission and then several city amendments. And then, as you all know, the state of California often, when there's an economic downturn, approves legislation to extend the life of tentative maps, which happened here as well. And then that applicant changed hands. The new owners came in, and they also worked diligently through the process of the contamination cleanup on the site. They've been actively in that process with the State Department of Toxic Substances Control, I think since 2004, and as recently as June of this year with a site visit by the DTSC staff. So all those things have been working their way through the process. The applicant, though, is ready for the final map, and this is the final map that would actually create the single-family lots on the property. That map, the final map, as the council knows, really is an opportunity for us to decide, is the final map consistent with the tentative map that was previously approved by the city and all the conditions associated with that map? And we have done that technical analysis that tentative map, that final map is consistent with the tentative map and is ready for approval. Tonight's item is not for council action, but just to let you know that action is pending. And once tonight occurs, typically the director takes about 10 days to issue that approval. It's currently scheduled for the 13th of this month. Given the testimony in letters that have been received by the council over the last few days, I've talked to the applicant, and he's agreed that we could extend that time frame an additional 2 weeks to September 27th. That would give me time to meet with the folks that are here in the room that have concerns about our ability to ensure compliance, and I'm happy to do that over the next couple of weeks.
Mr. Lambert, does this mean that it's a ministerial approval? It does not go to Planning Commission?
That's correct. The final map is really an opportunity. It's a technical review to make sure that all the conditions on the tentative map were implemented and all the requirements of that approval that was issued by the city were done, and that review has been completed, and we've determined that it is compliant, and that makes it really a ministerial action under my authority. It is appealable to the council, but even when it comes to the council on appeal, your hands are relatively tied as long as they've checked all the boxes and dotted the I's and crossed the T's.
And do you feel that there's a possibility of when you meet with the residents who are concerned, you'd be able to address a lot of their concerns that you've seen in the emails as well?
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of technical work that's happened over the last couple of years. I think the last time we had a community workshop was April of 2018. So it's been some time since the community has been engaged publicly in a process. So I think there might be an opportunity to provide some updates. Clearly, from reviewing the emails, the community has been paying attention. So I don't think it's a mystery, but I would love the opportunity to walk them through our work to get to the final map compliance, so they understand the nature of the decision. I can't control whether they would accept that, but I would certainly like to give that an opportunity.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Perrello.
Mayor Pro Tem has asked a lot of the questions that I have. Mayor Pro Tem has asked a lot of the questions that I have. The residents have reached out. They have concerns. I've had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Lambert, Ms. Ashley, and Mr. Newen. They're willing to accommodate the residents and to get a time where you have an opportunity to ask the questions and get some answers. You may not like the answers, but they're going to give you the best information they have at this time, and that is the information that I was given. They'll give you the accurate information. One of the concerns that I had is I thought that this was an extension of a project that had gone for too long of a period without an extension. And I want to bring the new council members up to speed on this matter. Where the financial towers are, there are 2 towers, but there was a 3rd tower approved with the other 2 towers. It is still a viable tower. My concerns have always been, and I've expressed them at this council, when that 3rd tower, if it is to be built, my understanding is it will not have to have a new traffic mitigation, even though it was approved at least 3 decades ago. And things have changed in the city of Oxnard since then. I don't want projects that languish because a developer, whether economics or not, to be able to sit and rest and then dropped on the council and the residents of Oxnard if there is mitigation that have changed since then. You may be aware the Vineyard Avenue Bridge was widened from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. There's been a lot of things that have come into Oxnard, River Park, the Esplanade, many things. And for a multi-story tower to be in the situation, I was very concerned that this particular project was like that. I was informed by Mr. Lambert that is not the case in this situation. Correct, Mr. Lambert? Yes, thank you. And
Yeah, that's correct.
And I appreciate, Mr. Lambert, you reaching out to the developer and willing to talk to the residents. Those are my concerns.
And thank you. And I don't know if any other council members have comments about this. This is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Lambert, probably one of the, well, there might be 2 or 3 total, but it is certainly the largest development that was approved over 20 years ago. And since that time period, there are many new people that have moved into the city. People have asked me questions continuously about this development and the future of it. We've had issues over landscaping. We've had issues over a variety of issues. And I'm hoping that when you do meet with the residents about this and hear what their concerns are, I don't know with a development agreement, and I think this is an important question to ask, when it comes to a development agreement that was approved 20 years ago, how long does that development agreement, how long normally is a development agreement, but how long is this one?
Well, this site does not have a development agreement. That's a specific contract between a city and an applicant. And when there's a development agreement, there's a specific time frame. It has a term of the development agreement, often 15, 20, 25 years, but it's very clearly stated in the development agreement document. This one is one of those where they had a tentative map that had, the tentative maps have a lifespan. They're allowed to have administrative extensions of time. There's also an allowance for a request for a planning commission extension beyond that. And then the state of California, given economic downturns that we've had, often has passed legislation to extend all tentative maps across the state, which happened in this case as well. And then the other part of this is their tentative map was extended to 2015 by the state, but the applicant's also been working diligently to implement that map, and that's proof enough that they're still active, that they can continue in the process.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate those comments. Thank you. Any additional?
Yes. When I saw this on the consent agenda, I was actually appalled. I know the location. I know a lot of the history. And the soil is still contaminated. You know, when it comes to coring, okay, you can selectively go only a certain distance on coring. And I used to watch, I had a sister that lived at the Oxnard Shoulders Mobile Home Park, and I was taking care of her many times. And at 1, 2 in the morning, over a period of quite a few months, I don't remember how many months, I would see, shall we say, night maneuvers about 2, 3 in the morning. And after enough of seeing that, and another person also that was living with my sister, okay, he made a contact to Sacramento, and within a couple weeks, that place was shut down. Now, I know that was quite a few years ago, about 2004, if I'm remembering. and it has also had several LLCs. And I would like to know how many community meetings they have had, and also, even though I live in South Bank, okay, that property over there concerns everybody, no matter where you are in the city. Every property is important. So I don't understand why this is going forward. And it says final map. And like I said, it has had several LLCs. In fact, I think one of them was in Chatsworth, where I used to live in the valley. And I think that needs to go back to the drawing board. So I guess the builder must smell money. And I hope that they're going to be happy looking at the Mandalay power plant. It's a lot of sarcasm, but this does not fly in my mind at all.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker, Frank Laza, to be followed by Mike Schultz, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Welcome back, and council members. My name is Frank Laza. I've been a resident here for 23 years and in business in the marine industry in the harbor. And my first thought when I saw this was, have we lost our minds? We've got polluted soil that they're talking about allowing to drain into the Edison Canal. We already know the issues that we have in the harbor with the stagnant water, the pollution, and we're going to add toxics? Are we nuts? This harbor is a gem. We can't afford to kill it. Allowing this to go forward, allowing them to drain into the Edison Canal would be the kiss of death. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Mike Schultz, to be followed by Akshay Manik, please.
I promise I won't talk about card casinos tonight, even though they raise a lot of money. We have a really good email chain in the harbor. We all know about the issues, but none of us knew about this. I came home from work 5 o'clock tonight and got this email that the development in the North Shore would be potentially dumping chemicals into the harbor, and that's a horrifying idea. I know some of you. I know Rosemary, I know Alex, I know Bert and Tim. I know 4 of you, and we're all working hard to on the water quality from every angle possible to make it clean and clear. And I know a lot of you are working with farmers and agriculture, and that needs to be our focus right now, because I know that's a complicated process. And let's work with the farmers and get them to stop dumping in that canal. The last thing we need is more dumping, more toxic chemicals. And I just want to remind you, the harbor is very fragile. And Edison Canal is very fragile, and I'm part of the boating community, and a lot of boaters come from all over California. That's a lot of money, a lot of yachts. I want to remind you, they're on a month-to-month lease in our harbor. And if we have too many problems or too much drama, they can move their yacht and go elsewhere to other harbors. This is like a fragile tree. Let's not kill the tree, this golden goose. We have boaters coming in from Thousand Oaks, Bakersfield, bringing a lot of money to our harbor. Let's settle in, buckle down, work on the quality of the water and the seawalls. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker, I'll just do that quickly, is Akshay Manik, to be followed by Vanna Kella, please.
Thank you. Mayor, esteemed council members, you and I, as custodians of the legacy we will leave our children, should not allow the Channel Islands harbor water quality to be degraded any further. Instead, we should see to it that it is restored and maintained to the sparkling quality that it was renowned for prior to the cessation of the generating station pumps. By working on multiple fronts, including forbidding and not permitting the introduction of new streams of chemical pollution, and mitigating already existing sources of nutrients and pollution and pollutants. And lastly, and most importantly, restoring the circulation of the north end of the Edison Canal. There is an abundance of public information available demonstrating that this landfill has a myriad of pollutants, including benzene and dioxin, the latter of which is a Class 1 human carcinogen. And this carcinogen will not be removed by the proposed strategy of soil vapor extraction that I read about. Additionally, soil vapor extraction may raise the water level underneath the ground and increase the risk that these chemicals will enter the aquifer. We sincerely, on behalf of the Channel Islands Harbor neighborhood, ask that rather than taking action such as this that will further introduce pollutants into the harbor, that you continue to use your leadership and influence in the restoration of what has the potential, as just mentioned, of continuing to be a world-class destination. I thank you for your efforts and thank you for your moment of silence.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker, Vanna Keller, to be followed by Audrey Keller, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Werner Keller from Westport. My point is also, I think, going to be brief. There has been something that's changed, and there is no basis, Mr. Fisher, I believe, for allowing this item to come on the consent agenda. It's not just dotting I's and crossing T's. The flow of the Edison Canal has been reversed since the last time this project was approved in July of 2015. So everything's changed. What we didn't fully appreciate is that this was basically a sewage pipe to the ocean and the farm fields, and of course in the future this development drain into it. This development asked for permission from the developer. The developer asked for permission from Centerpoint Energy to drain into the canal, and that permission was given by Centerpoint Energy. So now, since the flow of the canal has been reversed, basically we have this pipe going into a swimming pool. It's a Rec 1 water body, and that's not us saying that. That's the EPA of America saying it's a Rec 1 water body. We've got people doing yoga and falling in the water. My grandchildren were ordered to jump into the water to prove that they could get back in the sailboat during their sailing lessons. So is this the crown jewel of Oxnard? I don't know, but it's one of the candidates. So for golly's sake, let us make sure we keep it clean. Now, we have people in the MAC, which is a committee of the Channel Islands Neighborhood Council, that meet every Monday. We meet every week on a very complicated task, which is to get the farm fields analyzed, to get the discharges measured, because then there's a step where we're going with the water board. We've been to the water board. It's a whole procedure we have to follow to get the water board to step in and start controlling the discharges of the farm fields. Well, the absolute last thing we need is to have a new discharge source with these very questionable things. There's a website called Envirotech, which one of our citizens found. It's got a tremendous amount of material on this particular project. So just download it, read it. It's heavy stuff. And I appreciate that cities and citizens and cities are trying to renovate, brownfield kind of properties, and let's restore these former neighborhoods. Well, somehow this runoff has to not go into Edison Canal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Audrey Keller, to be followed by Mike DiMartino, please.
Good evening. Audrey Keller, Chair, Channel Islands Neighborhood Council. I'd like to read this document into the record. I've given every council member, city staff, and developer a copy as well. The residents of Channel Islands Neighborhood Council object to the current plan of MPL for North Shore, Mandalay Bay, to dump or discharge any water of any kind out of their said plan that's being approved. No water into the canal. We are directly impacted, as are all citizens of Oxnard and Ventura County, by the current water quality state of emergency. We at SYNC and through MAC have presented to every city council member, our city manager, and the staff of the Senator's office, Hannah Beth Jackson, as well as the LA Water Regional Quality Control Board. The severity of the pollution of this landfill has been monitored closely by the Department of Toxic Substance Control and the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board. The chemical list of mix of what's in the ground currently and what can flow into the water table is astounding. I can't imagine any of my friends that I would not tell them, don't buy a house in this development, one that is required to have a filter for the gas to come out of their house. It's a terrible idea. Unfortunately, this site is perched on the water table that is right above our aquifer. It sits about 18 feet below the ground surface to about 29 feet below that surface. That distance is where the canal sits. So if that aquifer is polluted and the canal that's adjacent to it is polluted, it's a big deal. That water comes straight down into our harbor. There is no obstruction currently. Our time is limited, but I've given you a much more thorough document. So in conclusion, the residents of Sink and the taxpayers of Oxnard have spent at least $500,000 as of January 2019 and more now, because we don't know that, to have this power plant and water cleaned up from the canal. We want any and all CFD funding relating to this product to also have a reserve for water harbor pollution, and that they too should have to contribute to the harbor water quality if and when they are a final development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike DiMartino, to be followed by Pat Brown, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. You know, I remember back when this development was originally dug out. And back then, the neighborhood was aware that this was a brown site. There were PCBs and other toxic materials on this site, and we knew about it at the time, but it was approved to go ahead and mitigate this site. Well, one of the things they were supposed to do was make sure that no dirt and dust got spread out all around the community. Well, I can tell you that Harbor Boulevard was brown. All the roads turning into Oxnard Shores and the dunes, that whole area was covered with dirt from that site everywhere. And I can tell you, a year after that, I ended up with cancer. So I am very seriously wondering about what we have done here. And not only that, you know, you can't trust these guys to do a clean job, because they're not. They had one street sweeper going up and down the road like it was going to actually do something about the dirt and filth that was all over the roads in our community. And then on top of it, they want to dump into the canal. Well, we're sitting here, we spent how many hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to figure out what is the chemical balance in the harbor, what are we going to do about solving the problem that we have there, and we're going to let these guys approve for them to start putting new substances into the water. We just can't afford to do that right now. If this project is going to go through, it has to be looked at under the light of 2019, not when this project was originally green-lighted in 1999, because the situation has completely changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Pat Brown, to be followed by Rocco Belmonte, please.
I've been here for 25 years. I know it's shocking, but I have. As an adult, of course. I'm 78. Anyway, I remember soon after I started coming to the city council meetings, so that was about 23 years ago or so, and there was this short guy, older, and he would chit-chat all the time. He'd like to come early and chit-chat. And I got here early to get a seat that was decent where I could hear what was going on rather than just watch it. and because the sound in here is terrible. And so anyway, he at times there was something talked about how that would be such a great place to have some really, really nice tall condominiums, maybe 3-4 stories, and you'd have a terrific view of the coast. And so that was there was a topic that was going on, chit-chatting. And he said, oh, no. He says, I can't tell you who I was working for. But he said, I think he's dead now. He said, I used to come out here with a truck and a dump at night. And he said, don't tell anybody. But he said, this is really, really bad property. And he said, don't tell anybody I told you. Well, I think he's gone now, so I think it's okay. I don't think he'll come after me. If he does, I'll probably beat him up anyway. But I just think that we really need to think this thing over before we really get ourselves in a problem. The other thing I wanted to do was to thank you for this the $30,000 grant for Ormond Beach. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And obviously, it needs it. If nothing else, it needs it. So I want to thank all of those that were involved in putting that together. Where they got the idea, I don't know, but I just want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker, Rocco Belmonte, to be followed by Debbie Mitchell, please.
Yep. Rocco Belmonte, live in Westport with Werner and many of the other people here. Good evening, Mayor Flynn and City Council. I don't want to be too redundant, but we just found out about this because of some research that one of our people in our community had done. And Werner mentioned it. It's actually the EnviroStar website from the state of California, which is all about pollutants and toxins. And it was really a surprise because, our harbor's been very fragile. It's been really impacted by the closure of the NRG plant. And as Werner and others explained, that water now in the Edison Canal is flowing back into the harbor. What I really want to focus on, and by the way, I did alert by email yesterday the contacts we have at the LA Regional Water Quality Control Board. And I want to know the process. I think this is important. I mean, all of a sudden, these decisions are getting made. Was there a scientific analysis done, and were they given all the information about where the water is flowing in that process? Was the Water Quality Control Board consulted, and don't they have to give approval before more toxins are dumped into California water that is coastal? What is the process? Because it seems like decisions are made. I mean, this decision came down July the 17th, and we accidentally find out about it. If we didn't find out about it, a couple of months would go by, and they'd start putting that stuff in, and it would be too tough to reverse. Somebody mentioned, I think, Mayor Flynn, you may have mentioned, one of the gentlemen would meet with the residents. Is that still going to happen? Can we get involved in that process and really get all you may have crossed the T's and dotted the I's and checked the boxes, but we don't think there's enough T's and I's and boxes. So we just like to make sure we can get a chance to do that. And also, I'd like to take the time too, Alex, to you about when we met back in June, we were going to meet with VCALG in August. And now it's September, because this is only one source of the pollutant. We know ag is a major cause of the pollutants. We had also requested through the process with Water Quality Control Board to do baseline testing on the oil residue and what's there. We didn't think there was much until we now find out they want to pump benzene and dioxin, as Akshay said, a class 1 carcinogen, into that same body of water. So we got to get involved in the process and hopefully reverse this thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes to the request to meet. Debbie Mitchell, to be followed by Carol Taylor, please.
Hi, thanks. I'll be brief and not redundant. That was the thing that drew my attention, was looking at the map and that there are storm drains flowing into the canal on the map. So I started Googling things, and when you look at the history, so much has changed in Oxnard since those original plans came to be, and including the closure of the plant. And what Rocco was saying about that they had an agreement with the plant, with NRG to do something, it just seems like the Water Quality Control Board had a permit process, that they were supposed to be doing testing in the canal at some point, and all of those timelines that got put off, you all may not be responsible, and that's where I feel really like at your mercy to ask you to help halt this until we can find what agencies do have the power to make sure that the testing is done, because it would be a shame to not stop it and have it come back here with other people with cancers and complaints and a fish kill, and to say we had a chance to really look into this. And the jurisdictional part seems so complicated as to who really is responsible. Should the water board have contacted the people who have been in touch with them about what's going on in the canal if they knew that there were permits that were out there that had required testing for the last 15 years? There's a lot of questions that we hope you will ask and help us to ask to get the answers to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me just... And the next speaker, Carol Taylor, to be followed by Connie Heege, please.
Good evening, Carol Taylor, Mandalay Bay. Gosh, in light of all the water quality issues that we've had, all the work that you've all done, that we've all done, all the costs that have been incurred, it just really is inconceivable that we would prove any factor that could possibly impact the water quality. I mean, we've been plagued with unintended consequences on a number of issues. Do we want this to be the next one? I mean, we just can't. And also, it should be noted that there should be mandated fiscal responsibility for any factors that have impacted the water quality in the past and in the future on this project. We as homeowners in Mandalay and Westport and Seabridge, we can't take the burden of everybody's issues. We really can't. So we really ask that you take a look at that and possibly do some analysis and reinvestigation. We think it's time before it's too late.
Thank you so much. Connie Heege, to be followed by Chuck Carter, please.
Hi, my name is Connie Hagee, resident of Oxnard and in the Channel Islands Harbor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I think a lot of really good points have already been brought up. I don't want to take up your time by repeating them, but I really do want to emphasize a couple of things. One is this EnviroStar report that's been mentioned. It lists these benzene, dioxin, and petroleum products as potential contaminants of concern. Those are words directly out of the report. So to me, it would say that that's what's going to end up in our water. And we have a water quality problem that we haven't even yet fully defined or analyzed. We don't know how we're going to resolve it. It doesn't make sense to add more problems into the water before we even know how to address what we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chuck Carter, to be followed by Patricia Jonas, please.
Good evening, Mayor Flynn, Council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. We learned about this new development and the stormwater dumping into the canal, and it was very concerning because of the contaminants that are on that property, have been there for 30 years. We know they're there. We've read about the mitigation steps to get rid of them, and I'm not sure how successful those have been. But the approval to discharge into Edison Canal 30 years ago needs to be revisited because of the things that have changed. The plant is closed. That circulation is no longer in effect to flush those contaminants out to the ocean. We have additional contaminants coming in from the ag, as has been mentioned. But the contaminants of concern are something that are dangerous to our health and the aquatic life. And we need to make sure that we look at the best management practices to filter, prevent any kind of those contaminants coming into our harbor, which is a REC 1 body contact water. And there are filter filters that were installed at Seabridge and Westport. When those developments were put in, the developer spent millions of dollars putting in storm filters that have different kinds of, kind of like a swimming pool filter. They have elements in there, they can take out different contaminants. This developer should be required to install something like that, some kind of a filter system that will make sure that any water they're discharging into Edison Canal meets the water quality standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last speaker for the information consent agenda is Patricia Eunice, please.
Good evening. Everybody has been very kind and very nice and very gentle. I would like to prepare or propose that if we can't stop this, we will get a restraining order on this map. This is so serious, so complicated, so wrong that there's just nothing else. If we have to do that, that's what we'll do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the speakers. Madam City Clerk, no additional speakers that I see that have submitted cards. What is the pleasure of the council? And I'd actually like to ask Mr. Nguyen on item 2, did I hear that maybe we have 2 additional weeks to meet with people if we approve that final track map?
Yes, sir. Give me 2 seconds.
Right. No action. I mean, I know it's a notice, but I want them to understand that, right? Because they think that perhaps there is an action involved this evening.
Yes. So let me, if I may, Mr. Mayor, a couple of quick comments. So first of all, to be very clear about what is on the agenda, it is a notice of a pending approval. I appreciate everybody's input, and frankly, I want people to realize that our system is working. The fact that you're here and you're giving this input, it's working. I appreciate all the concerns. The only thing I don't appreciate is the insinuation that we tried to sneak this through, that it's all of a sudden and that it's last minute, because it isn't. 2 years ago, this kind of administrative action wouldn't even come to the council on the agenda as a notice. It would have just happened in the office. Not too long ago, this would have been published Friday. But this city council passed a sunshine ordinance. This has been published for 12 days. In addition, it's a notice for 10 days pending an action. So there's a 22-day window for this kind of public input. And it is working. It's effective. This is how it works. This is something that sometimes it amazes me that we take this process of local democracy for granted. It doesn't happen around the world. It's working. So please appreciate that. We're not trying to sneak anything through. So based on the public input, Mr. Lambert reached out to the developer, and we're going to get the time now instead of having, because remember, this is finalizing a map. It's a long process on their end. They have their rights as well that require the city to do our job in terms of processing their program. So they've agreed that Mr. Lambert doesn't need to make this decision in the next 10 days. What we want to do is do basically a public session, a briefing session, so all these issues can be aired out and that they can come and answer questions. And I would like to try to see if we can also get some of these state agencies to have representatives as well. This project goes back so far, back in 2006 and 2007, that period, the State Department of Toxic Substances Control, DTSC, they cleared this land as being cleaned up. So from that perspective, it has a clean health, bill of health. We understand that we have new concerns and we have different concerns now. And so that's why this process is working. So we've put it on the agenda for 12 days. We have a 10-day going forward period. So we have put this out there under the sunshine, and this process has simply brightened and broadened the spotlight on this. So this is working. This is how it's supposed to work. So we're going to go through this process. That's all I have to say on this. we're going to set up a session where where everyone can raise these issues, and we're going to see what the answers come out to be. And then Mr. Lambert can make his determination afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments by members of the City Council? Councilman Perillo.
Yeah, Mr. Nguyen, can you please explain to the council and the public the legal rights the individual has this project, this last point, this thing? We have an attorney that's a specialist in.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, under the Subdivision Map Act, once a tentative map is filed and the map does not expire because it has not been processed appropriately, the developer has the right, once they substantially comply with the terms of the tract map, to get a final map. In this situation, as was laid out earlier by Mr. Lambert, the developer, based upon extensions of the map, pursuant to the state extension, as well as the filing of the final map, has the right, if they've made substantial compliance, to have this final map approved by Mr. Lambert. At this point in time, staff has reviewed the files, they reviewed the conditions of approval, and they have met the requirements. So at this point in time, they do have that right based on staff's determination. Staff will listen to the comments. We have been listening tonight, and their review of the emails, the letters, etc. And Mr. Lambert will make his determination on or after September 27th.
Mr. Roselle, the way I understand it, basically our council's hands are tied tonight as far as if we were to say no, the developer has the right to come after us, and most likely he would win.
Well, the process works as follows. Assuming that any member of the public wants to appeal this proposed approval of the final map, they have the right to appeal to the City Council, and the City Council will be able to make the final determination. However, as was mentioned earlier, there is a very narrow ability of the City Council not to approve this final map. This is because if there's substantial compliance with the terms of the tentative map, then state law requires approval. So it's truly a ministerial act if those baseline matters have been met.
And if I can add, Council Member, so you asked about the Council's action tonight. So tonight, the Council just has a notice in front of it, a receive and file, that this action is going to be taken by the Director in the future. And that's in compliance with the City's Code, Chapter 15, Section 55, about Director action, that the Director shall notify the City Council at its next regular meeting after the Director receives the map, that the Director is reviewing the map for final approval. So that is what is going on tonight, and there's no council action required. The action is having it on the agenda.
And one of the things I've been cautioned about is that if a council member were to take a very strong stand one way or the other on this, they could be challenged later on if a decision comes up for the council to vote on. They could be basically challenged as being unfair, unbiased.
That is potential, and just also make very clear for the record, up until the time that the Director approves the final map, any interested party can file an appeal. So the reason I mentioned the September 27th date, that is because Mr. Lambert has stated tonight that he will not consider the approval of this project until September 27th. So any member of the public, interested party who wishes to file an appeal and bring this to City Council has until that date in which to file an appeal.
Okay. Thank you. The concern that I have is one that I found to serve me very well. The health, safety, and welfare of the public come first. And as long as the health, safety, and welfare of the public are addressed, I can live with things. If they're not, I can't. But thank you for answering my question.
So, just to clarify, Mayor Pro Tem?
Only this. I think some serious issues have been raised by the residents, need to be addressed and I hope resolved.
Absolutely. And I'd just like to add to the city attorney in the comments that he made. Once again, the council's not approving or not approving a project, right? That's number one. There's not even an action. It's just a notice. And as Mr. Nguyen said, prior to the Sunshine ordinance that we passed, This is in itself a ministerial act, meaning that it might not have even appeared on the agenda. But what's most important about it is, I think, is maybe there's the implication. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but there's implication that the city council can stop this now. That's what I'm sensing. City council can say, stop, we're not going to go forward here. But the city council is not in a position this evening with this agendized item to do that. The city council is not doing anything other than the fact that it's hearing of the notice of intent to file for the final track map, and there's no action that the city council is taking. So when the city council votes this evening on the information consent items, there might be those who say, we'll vote no on number 2. Well, it's meaningless because it's simply a notice. And so I think what's going to be very important, I'd say to the city attorney and to Mr. Nguyen and to my council colleagues, is that meeting with Mr. Lambert and the residents take place right away, and that the comments that the city manager made about, because the implication is this is toxic land, and that there's going to be toxic runoff going into this already challenged body of water. But Mr. Nguyen has stated that this site has actually been cleaned up, and I imagine, Mr. Lambert, that's in fact what, in part, you're going to be discussing with the residents. Is that correct? That the property has actually been sufficiently mitigated, and that's been, how long ago was it mitigated? Maybe it would be important just to find out. Do we know how long ago it was mitigated, the soil?
Well, DTSC cleared it back in 2006-7.
2006 and 2007. Okay, very well. All right, so that's all I wanted to say before we vote. Yes?
Mayor,
Councilwoman Basua.
Yes, thank you. I do want to make a comment. Just to clarify, this action is just not even an action. It's an informational item that is coming to us. And I want to thank the staff, because Mr. Nguyen is right. In city government, a lot of times we would pass this through and we would not hear about it until it's done. So I really want to commend the City of Oxnard staff for bringing this to our attention, letting us know this is something that they are working on. It's just for information. They've done their due diligence, and now they have the task to go back to the community and listen to their concerns. It will come back to us. And I just want to make sure that the audience here and people watching at home understand that this is working, and we appreciate everybody's comments, but for now it's only telling us, the council, what staff is going to be working on.
Thank you very much. What's the pleasure of the council on the information consent agenda?
Move the recommended action.
Okay, so we have, Madam City Clerk, a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. We have a second by Councilwoman Basua. Vote, please.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
Aye.
Councilman McDonald.
Aye.
Councilwoman Basua.
Aye.
Councilmember Perlow. Mayor Flynn.
Aye.
The motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the information consent agenda. And now the City Council will be moving forward on the agenda to